Our theme, it seems, for the last few exercises has been drop shadows and even transparency or opacity. And I want to show you a very cool CSS property for creating opacity or transparency. This is typically used on divs. So what I think I'll do to demonstrate this for you is I'm going to throw a div around my special effects text. Give me just a moment. I'm going to flip back over to my code, and there's my special effects text right there. And I'm just going to give myself a little bit of room on top and underneath, just like that. And I'm going to wrap this guy, as I say, in a div, just like this. Again, just for the sake of brevity, I'm going to use some inline formatting here, but of course I could use this in an internal style sheet or an external style sheet, wherever I want. So I'm going to go style equals, and then in quotes, what I'm going to go and do is specify this thing called opacity, the opacity property, just like this. Now I have a variety of settings that I can use for opacity. I could do something like 0.0. That gives me a fully transparent object. Or I could go 1.0, which gives me a fully opaque object. Or again, I could get into doing something like 0.25 or maybe 0.5, something like that. And that would obviously set percentages. Okay? So I think maybe to start things off, I'm going to go 0.5, followed by a semicolon, of course. But we're not really going to get much of an effect, not the kind of effect that I'm after here. So I'm going to throw in a few other properties just to help me along here. I'm going to throw in a background color. So I think I'm just going to keep this down and dirty. I'm going to go red, and maybe I'll set a width of 500 pixels on this guy, and maybe some padding as well, padding of 10 pixels. There we go. But of course, the important thing here is this fella right there, our opacity. So let's go and see how this looks. Save and refresh my browser. There we go. So now we have this large red box sitting on screen, but I don't know if you can see that there or not, but we have this transparent effect being applied not only to the object, the div, but to the contents of the div as well. So for instance, I could come back to my code here, and rather than 50%, I'm going to go with 0.25, 25%, save that up, back over to the browser and refresh, and now that object is getting lighter and lighter. Let's try just 10%, 0.1. Save and refresh. There we go. So this is opacity, but with CSS, which is awesome. 0.05 for just 5%, something like that. Or again, I could crank it all the way up. I could go really whatever I want. Let's say 80%, 0.8. Refresh. There we go. So you can definitely monkey around with this. Watch your browser support on this guy, though. Definitely test this in your different browsers. But setting opacity on your objects is definitely possible with CSS.